ago, this could be something, or it should be something you come back to, refine and reflect. There's great books out there. They have exercises around helping you get really honed in on what are your core values. And they would have you go through a process of taking this list you've created initially and culling it down and being even more narrow and specific about what really makes you tick, what matters to you most. And if you did this on a regular basis, you might find that some things enter the list and some fall off, but for the most part, you have a core set of values that you've taken with you for most of your life. And you can probably look at what you wrote down and say, yeah, that makes sense to me. One for me is family. That's how I make my decisions in life, my career choices, why I've moved to California. These are all things that mean a great deal to me. And there have been some of the biggest fights of my life have been over family and the importance of family over anything else. So when you start thinking about what do you stand for and what are you willing to stand up for, that's the kind of thing that you want to look for in these core values. So now look at that list of core values and go back to the list of stuff that you wrote down that was on your brain. And I want you to circle anything on that list of stuff that you wrote down that you think directly relates to those core values. Did you notice a correlation? To me, that would indicate that you've got really good opportunity, all right? Especially on those areas that are pulling at you. To the correlation to your core values, to start there, right? So now we've got a little bit of clarity, just a little bit. The window on the windshield got a little bit bigger, a little less snow. Blind spots a little smaller. So let's hit play again. Stephen Covey said one of his 7 habits, if you remember, is begin with the end in mind. So once you get some clarity around what you stand for and what's important and what matters in your life, if you can start verbalizing that as if it were already true. You know this. This is not new. People have been talking about the power of affirmation since the word affirmation was created in the English language, right? But you know there's power there. And so I just want to give you some examples. Cary Grant, many of you know, he was born as Archibald Leach in the country of England and was actually had a very, very troubled childhood. His dad basically institutionalized his mom and told him that she was dead. He ran away at age 13 to some sort of show, like a vaudeville show, and found his way to New York. And over a series of years, got noticed and moved to Hollywood and became the Cary Grant we know and love. He said, I pretended to be the somebody I wanted to be and finally became that person. Jim Carrey grew up in Canada, very poor, had a job as a janitor, handed over all his money to his dad to help keep the family afloat. You've probably heard this story before. He was pretty down and out, not making a lot of money as a comedian in LA. And he decided to take his Toyota for a drive up Mulholland Drive, pulled off, sat down on the side of the road, and really just had a talk with himself and said, you know what, I gotta make it. I'm committed to making it. And he sat down and wrote a check for $10 million to himself for Thanksgiving 1995. And he found out literally weeks before Thanksgiving 1995 that he got the gig in Dumb and Dumber, which was a $10 million paycheck. So how often, have we done that? Have you set a goal that specific for yourself? Do you carry around a check for $10 million? There's an opportunity for us to be really clear about what we want and what we think we can accomplish. Wilma Rudolph, in the 60s, was considered the world's fastest woman. She won 3 Olympic gold medals in the 1960 Olympics. She was born premature, 4.5 pounds, and because of the segregated South, could not go to the hospital to be cared for. She had many long-term and serious illnesses, including scarlet fever, measles, mumps. They noticed when she was a little kid that she's developed some weakness in one of her legs. Turned out to be polio. And they took her to the hospital. Her mom drove her something like 90 miles twice a week to be treated for that. It wasn't until age 12 that the braces came off her legs. And that's when she started running. I like this quote. My doctors told me I would never walk again. My mother told me I would. I believed my mother. And I like this quote for 2 reasons. Because it shows this power of belief, but also because we're parents. And we can have that kind of positive influence on our own children and get them to believe. Here's one of my favorites. Arnold. In 1976, after being Mr. Universe, made a movie that you probably have never heard of called Stay Hungry. Have you heard of this movie? Yeah? I've heard it's really bad. You can't even find it on Netflix. It's terrible. Horrible, right? That's what everybody says. Even people who are tried and true Arnold Schwarzenegger fans would say it's a bad movie. So in 1976, he made this movie, and the sports writer was interviewing him in Arizona. And his name was Steve Chandler. And Steve Chandler said, so Arnold, what's next? Thinking, it ain't going to be a movie career. And he's still this hulking, huge man from his Mr. Universe days. And Arnold, I wrote this quote down because I want to get it exactly right. I just love what he said. He said, I'm going to be the #1 box office star in all of Hollywood. In 1976, he said that. Steve sat back in his chair. It's not like you could really believe it after seeing Stay Hungry. He said, it's the same process I used in bodybuilding. What you do is create a vision of who you want to be, and then live into that picture as if it were already true. The power of your words. Right? All of these people, take the time to point it out, they're infallible. We know the rest of Arnold's story. He's not a perfect man. None of these people are perfect. They didn't lead perfect lives. None of our lives are perfect. But we can harness the power of those words for ourselves, for the things that we care most about in this world. So, we go back to these things that we've looked at. We need to live in a world where we focus on the important things, not the urgent things. That we have perspective over why we're doing what we're doing, and enough control over the day about how we make decisions about what we do. We feel so good about what we actually got done. And the result of that is that we have really positive emotion and great energy to harness when we want to get done, again, the things that make us feel great. I told you one of my core values is family. And I moved last week, from a house to a new house, right? So it's Sunday afternoon, about 5 o'clock in the evening, and I was leaving for a business trip the next morning. So I've got boxes all over my house. I've not yet made dinner. It's Sunday evening. I'm thinking dinner, bedtime, so on, the same kind of things we all think about on Sunday. And my 5-year-old daughter says, Mommy, can we go for a walk? And this is the kind of decision point I'm talking about. There are a million reasons why I did not want to go for a walk. And I thought, you know what? Family, core value. Okay, let's go. There's a hill behind our house. So we walk up the hill and we find this rope swing. And this picture represents such perfect joy to me. A perfect moment between my daughter and I. A closeness that we shared because I